Happy Monday, Streakers. Your Monday should be going along just fantastically well because you had a great weekend, right? Also, here where I am, the sun is shining, the skies are blue, and it's just a little crisp outside, but beautiful. Today on the Streaking Show, by the way, this is Jeff Downs on the Streaking Show, I wanted to highlight two things that happened to me. One today, and something I've been holding in reserve for quite some time. Not because I've wanted to hold it in reserve, it just seemed that there were other pressing matters that I wanted to speak about first, which I did. So I'm going to talk to you about those two things. Let's start streaking. As you look at my day today, I don't know if you can see my day today, which obviously you can't. Maybe sometime that will be the case. I had the opportunity today to record for Franklin Covey's Be a Better Leader podcast. Sometimes I am a guest host on the Be a Better Leader podcast, and I have the opportunity to interview great people. Today, I got to interview Stephen M.R. Covey about two things. One, innovation and trust, and then also employee engagement and trust. What a fantastic interview that was. It was so much fun. Basically, I asked a couple of questions, and Stephen answered the questions with great insight and excellent passion. The reason I bring these two things up, because it was really fun to hear him talk about many of the things that I've been studying in the last few weeks. As I mentioned yesterday, because I work for Franklin Covey and I want to be the best consultant that I possibly can, I'm reviewing the content that we have on a regular basis. One piece of content that we have is Franklin Covey's Speed of Trust, written by Stephen M.R. Covey, and also Trust and Inspire. So to talk to him to talk to him today about the things that I've been studying really did have quite an impact. Now, these interviews that I had with him, they're 20 minutes long, and I had two of them, and they're going to appear in the future. So this is just a little bit of a promo. If you haven't had a chance to look into or sign up or subscribe for the Be a Better Leader podcast, you can do that. I have the privilege, again, to be able to host a couple of those, hopefully more in the future. I also have coming up, I'll be hosting another couple of podcasts for this with a different leader, Corey Kogan, who's one of our best-selling authors. A lot of fun. As I think about the Speed of Trust and streaking again is how you operationalize all of the different ways that you can build trust in an individual and also in an organization, between each other in the family as well as friends, any other type of relationships. Building trust is something that you can measure and that you can do in a tangible, real way. And I would say that the tangible, real way that you're doing that is through streaking. In the Speed of Trust, there are 5 waves of trust that are defined. The first two being self-trust and relationship trust. These are the 5 waves or 5 rings of trust, and you work from the center going out. Now, I spent a lot of time on this a few podcasts back. If you want to go back and listen to that, you can. What I saw when I was talking with Stephen today was the courage and also the consistency necessary upon any leader. And because this has become a Better Leader podcast, we really did focus in on how you, as a leader, be it in your family, friendships, or business, nonprofit, for-profit, whatever organization, government, and so forth, can build trust in a real and tangible way, how streaking is at the heart of that. Streaking, the consistency of being able to have the behaviors on a regular basis, is what you need to do in order to have success and build trust. Give you a couple of little previews, and then I'm going to move on to the second thing that I wanted to talk to you about today. A couple of little previews. One, in employee engagement or engagement overall, Steve and I talked about the pivot point for any employee engagement. And that pivot point happens between the supervisor and the immediate direct report. So whoever your boss is and that direct report, that is where trust is engaged. And there's ways to build that trust. One of the questions I asked Stephen, I'm not going to give away what the answer was, but I will give you the question. One of the questions that I asked him is, we've outlined, I'll give you a little background first. we've outlined in this podcast what it takes and why it's important for a leader to develop trust with his people. What I have a question about is how, if I don't have a leader that is trusting, how do I, as a follower or as a direct report to that leader, how do I build trust with that leader? What do I do to promote trust? His answer, phenomenal. Engaging. That episode will come out, and I'd encourage you to listen to it. It's not for a little while. It's still in processing. Again, we just recorded today, and so it's going to go through some of the editing process so that it can be available a little bit later on. But it's Be a Better Leader, Franklin Covey. Subscribe to it. As far as innovation, so we recorded 2 separate podcasts. One will be on employee engagement. The other will be on innovation. The innovation front, he talked and gave 2 specific examples. Again, I'm not going to give you what the examples were because you got to go listen to it. It's really good. He gave 2 specific examples of organizations that became significantly innovative when they did one thing, and that was focus on and put in place the action of trust. In all of this, everything that is weaved throughout the entire conversation that we have, and this is what I'm finding with almost every leader, every thought leader that I talk to, is that consistency is the red thread that pulls everything together. Consistency is streaking. One other thing that I was really impressed with that I need to do a little bit more is Stephen talked about the statistics of how much trust improves an organization. Real stats that gave information and really was, how should I say it, compelling. That's it. The information that he gave was compelling and the stats were compelling. What do you think it is about stats that draw us in? I mean, anytime he quoted a stat, I was immediately drawn in as, wow, that's interesting. Wow, they really found that out. I am sure that there are many stats behind the power of consistency. I haven't spent the time looking at the power of consistency from a statistical point of view. I've spent the time developing how you do consistency, not necessarily what the result of consistency will be. So I'm going to look into that. I promise you I'm going to get you more stats on that as far as each law, how making it laughably simple gives you, and I won't quote any type of stat right now because I don't know what they are and I'm going to look into them, but being laughably simple, what's the percentage gain that you get from that and how significantly? Well, we did quote a little bit of a stat because a couple of days ago, remember the article that I read with you about the study that was done at Stanford, Mind and Body, about how doing the small things and giving yourself permission to be consistent by doing small and simple things had a much greater impact on being able to get people to continue in their exercise routine. So that was a stat back there, but I'm going to get much better at that. So law number 1, why is it so important and laughably simple? And if it's a true principle, the results are going to show. So I'm going to do that. Secondly, how marking it, that you have it complete, keeping a record is critical to your success as well. And that's the accountability partner. And then the third stat that I'm really going to look into is the concept of community, how a community that celebrates with you will bring about even greater success. So those are stats that I'm going to look into. What Stephen did with all of those stats was impressive from all kinds of different groups. He had stats on how trust really impacts you as a leader and also your organization. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2, I've had on my desk an article that I've wanted to read for quite some time, and I finally got around to reading it. It's out of LDS Living, and the title is Grandpa Beck's Games. Have you ever played any of these games? I have a brother-in-law who loves playing games, and Grandpa Beck's Games is one of his favorites, especially the one that he introduced to us that we play as a family. Now, I'm not as much of a game player as some other people, but I do enjoy a good game every once in a while. I find that, I don't know if you want to know why, but I'll tell you why. My competitive side, it's not always the best side. It's not the one that I always like to present to the world. And therefore, when I get highly competitive, I need to watch myself and watch what it is I'm doing in order to maintain control, because I want to maintain love, peace, appreciation. I remember in high school, we had a Monopoly board game group, and we would meet together about once a week and play Monopoly. And when I say play Monopoly, I meant play all the rules of Monopoly. The games would last 1, 2 in the morning, and we would play until everyone was bankrupt except one person. When I lost those games, it was hard. And I wasn't the best person. So from that time and from other events, I have not built the strength to be able to lose and maintain my composure. So rather than losing composure, I shy away from games. And when I am going to go into a board game or anything else, I have to steel myself, tell myself, remember, it's just a game. We're playing together. This is a lot of fun. Now, my brother-in-law, he loves games and he wins a lot. He's got a very strategic mind. He's absolutely fantastic individual that knows and understands strategy and is able to employ that strategy in many of the different games. The game that he loved with Grandpa Beck's, and he loves many of them, is Skull, Skull King, Skull King. He introduced us to that game, our family. We all played it together. A blast of a game. So when this article came out about Grandpa Beck's games, I was interested. What is it? How did it come about? And why did people, and by the way, it sells millions and millions of copies of his games worldwide, and they're mainly card games. The most popular is actually Cover Your Assets. And I've played that one as well. A lot of fun. What I found interesting about this article, and you can guess it, was the consistency to build and the patience that they had to build this business. In one part of the article, they talked about that their games, a lot of them don't come to market for several years because they are perfecting them as a family. It's a family-run business. If you know Crumble Cookie, which has some of the best cookies on earth, you know that recently Grandpa Beck and Crumble Cookie got together and created a Cover Your Cookie game, obviously patterned after the Cover Your Assets game. As I looked at and read this article, I was impressed with the number of times that they talked about the consistency that they had every day to build the business. That they set a streak to work on the business every day. Now, they didn't say it in that way, and I want to be crystal clear. They don't know anything about streaking. Again, what I find is that the people who are successful, the ones who get success, are streakers. And that streaking is done through years that brings about the success of, for example, Grandpa Beck's games. He talks about playing the games with his family and testing them and trying them, bringing about the holes and the gaps, seeing what they are, and then the family getting together, covering those gaps, doing what they can to make the game perfect. Then it comes to market. And when these games come to market, they're really good. The illustrations on the cards look fantastic. There's also a couple of really great stories about how they made their final mark on the game industry at a game and toy convention. Great story. You go out and read it. Again, it's in LDS Living. It's a fantastic story, written very well. As I read through it and saw the amount of consistency and appreciated the amount of patience that they had in building this business, that was what I wanted to pass on to you, is that in your life, as you go about building yourself, building your businesses, building your family, it is not the one moment that is going to make all the difference. It's going to be the consistent moments through time that create a family, a business, you as an individual, as a successful stay-together family and business. That's what streaking is about. It's setting up those streaks in your life that allow you to be successful. It's the inputs that you put in and through time become successful. That's why in law number 3, talking about creating a community or joining a community, celebrating together really does create memorable moments, and success. And that success is built continually through the number of days, weeks, and months, or through time that you are working on those things together. Create the laughably simple. As I look at, there are some people who have a streak to play at least one game with the family each week, or to do something with the family each week. You want to add to that streak something that will really get your juices going. Grandpa Beck's games. And by the way, just so you know, this is not a paid sponsorship. This is something that I just enjoyed and wanted to share with you. Go out, take a look at them. They are fun, and then set a streak to play at least one game every week with another family member. If you want to learn more about streaking, buy the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or anywhere books are sold. Also, you can download it via Audible. Most importantly, download the Streaking app, where you can keep track of your own streaks. Also, share those streaks with others, see how others are doing, celebrate with them, create a community, and learn the basics of streaking. Streaking app has it all. Download it, share it with friends, go out there, and together build this community of success. Until we talk again, keep streaking.